Hey Crocheters! I'm so excited to share this podcast with you guys today. I got to interview Elise from Les Petite Saint Crochet. She is a YouTuber, blogger, and has an awesome Instagram account. She started crocheting in 2016 to help channel and relieve stress from her son's serious health condition. And in 2018, she found amigurumi toys. So what began as a hobby became an obsession. I think most of us can relate. She found that crocheting the amigurumi brought so much joy into her life and to the lives of her friends and family that it's kind of become a mission for her to share, to teach, to inspire other people to also create with their hands, specifically crochet and knitting, so that they can experience that peace and the joy that comes from creating with yarn. When she's not making handmade toys, you can find Elise walking her rescue dog, Jersey Boy, laughing at her 4 grown children's antics, or shopping for vintage treasures with her husband. Without further ado, I am excited to share this interview with you. Well, Elise, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Valerie. I'm really excited.
Me too. I think it's going to be fun. I've been following you on Instagram for a while now, and then saw that you'd started on YouTube, and I just thought, she's like really cool, and and she's just getting started. I don't know. I wanted to interview you here and just get to know you better, and also just share, because I've just been really impressed with the content that you put out.
Thank you.
Like, you're really consistent, and so I just thought, you know what, I'm sure like probably everyone in my audience will love her, so I'm just gonna, let them know that she's here. So
yay, thank you. Well, I just love your things. I think it's so creative that you're using that chunky yarn and doing these adorable, seriously, your stuff is so, I just want to squish it. I just want to get those little, they're so
I know. Cute. That's how I feel too. That's why I make them, because I'm like, oh,
squishy.
Yep, I love doing it. So I wanted to start off just by asking, what is your crochet journey? What brought you into crocheting? How did you learn? What's the story there?
The story is a long one, but I will condense it a little bit. I really learned how to crochet from my grandmother and my stepmom. And really, I did that, like, I learned how to chain. I was like 10 or 11, and I made like a 6-foot long chain and didn't know what to do with it. And I just kind of put it away for a while. And then when my kids were little, I just decided that I wanted to do some kind of handcraft. Actually, I tried all these different things. I was scrapbooking, cross-stitching. I tried sewing, quilting, all these things. None of them really ever stuck for me.
Gotcha.
And then I tried knitting, and I was extremely frustrated with knitting, so I put it away. And then it was late 2016, early 2017, somewhere in there, that my son he has epilepsy, and things were kind of out of control. He was not doing very well. And I knew, like, I was driving myself crazy. I was driving him crazy. I needed something to occupy my hands. I knew it. I needed to just do something that could kind of distract me. And of course, I went on Pinterest, and I was looking all through Pinterest.
Yeah, getting inspiration.
Getting inspiration. Like, what kind of hobby could I do? And it was kind of one of those moments where I saw this granny square crib blanket, and it was like those beams of light like shone right down on it. And I was like, oh, I have to make this. This is the most beautiful thing. And, in the back of my mind, my grandmother crocheted, but it was like these big scratchy Afghans that were nothing I was really all that interested in making, but this looked modern and pretty. And it was like, I want to do that. I want to make that. So I literally bought the pattern. It was way too hard for me. I couldn't do it, but it really was the jumping off point for me, because that's when I learned how. I just jumped on YouTube and learned how to make a granny square, and I was off from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Pinterest plays a role in like me finding amigurumi as well. I think that's the very first place I saw it. It's just so so cool.
Yes.
And so I'm curious, moving from there, because I know you've, like, I can see your little collection of your knitted amigurumi in the back. That's kind of been more of a recent thing. You said when you started, you know, you'd picked up knitting and it was just too frustrating. What has, what's shifted from crochet to knitting and like finding your groove in that?
When I started doing the crocheting amigurumi, I loved the characters. I loved the little, you know, all the little things you could do with that. There's just so many amazing toys you can make. And then I was actually teaching at a local yarn shop, and one of the ladies there showed me the patterns from Little Cotton Rabbits. Now, most of those women were knitters. They didn't crochet. They mostly knit, and they showed them the Little Cotton Rabbits patterns to me, and it took my breath away again. I was like,
they are adorable.
You know, they're really adorable, and I love all the little clothes and all the color work. So at that moment, I really did not have the knitting skills that I would need to be able to knit them. So so I just continued to happily crochet along, and eventually I just continued to work on my knitting skills. And I think really with the dawn of YouTube really helped to be, you know, for me to be able to get my knitting skills up, you know, so much easier to get on and learn how to fix mistakes, how to do this, how to do that. And also just honestly, at that time when I started knitting, my 4 children were really young, and my brain wasn't working at that point, you know? So I think it was kind of a combination of those two things. My kids are older and YouTube is here. So yeah.
Well, that's really cool. I don't know, it kind of inspires me to think like maybe I could try knitting again someday. Because that's another one of those things that like I can cast on because you only use one.
Right.
When you're casting on. And as soon as you get 2, I'm just like, just so clumsy. I just like, you know, fumble the ball. As they would say. It's not very pretty, but.
Yeah, I totally get that.
So I wanted to also ask, what was it that made you decide you wanted to start on YouTube? You've been doing your blog and Instagram for quite a while.
Yeah.
So what was it that was like, all right, you know, now's the time. We're gonna try YouTube.
Well, number one, it's so much easier to teach someone how to do a technique through a video than to write out the explanation.
Yes.
Take photographs. I mean, seriously, that is, I am not good at that. That is so difficult to me. So it really was kind of a practical thing to say, you know what, YouTube really is a much better medium for teaching tutorials.
Yeah.
But number 2, I actually took a blog course from Lisa from Farmhouse on Boone. And she really said in her blog course, she's like, listen, the way that people are consuming content is really changing. So whereas 5 and 10 years ago, a lot of people wanted to read blogs, now people want to they want to watch. They're not so interested anymore in reading. And I kind of looked at my own way that I consume content. And if I need to know how to do something, I'm going to go on YouTube. Yeah. And when I learned that YouTube is the second largest search engine, second only to Google, it was like, okay, this is what people want. Why not do what people already want rather than, you know, I prefer, if I could, I would love to just write. I do like to write, but I know that YouTube it's where people are at. So might as well go where the people are, you know?
It's true. Yeah, meet them where they are.
Right.
Instead of trying to convince them to come join your party.
Right. Exactly.
So I think I've only really seen from you amigurumi.
Yeah.
What is it about amigurumi that you love so much? And do you dabble in anything else, or is it just kind of like, nah, amigurumi?
I will make some granny square things here and there. I do love a beautiful granny square blanket. There is just something so gorgeous about them, and I love them. I think for me, the toys, it takes me back to a simpler time. It is something that, number one, my kids are bigger now. My oldest just turned 24 and my youngest is 17. And it reminds me of when they were little, and we homeschooled them all the way through. And so we spent so much time reading stories, reading books, and I loved the books as much as they loved the books.
Yeah.
You know, Beatrix Potter stories and
Oh, yeah.
Little Bear and Frog and Toad, and I
Absolutely.
love all of those things. So I think for me, just making these handmade toys, crocheting or knitting them, it just kind of brings all of those warm fuzzies back. And I don't know, I just love them.
Oh, I love that. That actually reminds me a lot of my dad. He, like growing up, no book was safe. Even when I was like in second grade and was like just like starting to read chapter books.
Right.
If you left a book, you know, out, he would pick it up and read it, and you'd be like, Dad, you know,
book back.
yeah, you know, it's like, it's my Nancy Drew book, you know, a couple years later, and he's just like, oh yeah, it was good.
Right. Don't ruin the ending. Oh, that's funny.
Gotta love families that read.
Yeah.
So what has been your biggest insight from being a YouTube creator?
That number one, it's a lot harder than it looks. Yeah. When you see that perfectly put together video, what you don't see on the other end is how many flubs and mistakes and so many you know, you have to start the video over. And so I think that's probably my biggest insight, is that it's kind of hard. And there's a huge learning curve, especially for people like me who are kind of technologically, I'm challenged in that area very much so. So it has stretched me beyond anything I really thought that I would ever be able to do.
Well, that's cool that you've been able to grow in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are certainly, I don't know, I feel like you do a really good job at kind of, I would say, like curating your content that you make, and like having, you know, good like beginning, middle, and ends, and having like B-roll and everything. And so I definitely see like in your work how there's definitely more effort that goes into it.
Well, and I think that I saw someone posted and just encouragement on YouTube that said, just hurry up and get those first 50 videos done, because they're going to be terrible, and just go ahead and do them. And I've really adopted that philosophy that done is better than perfect. So it just needs to get done, and I can't get better at it unless I actually do it. And there are some of those earlier videos that I'm like, I said, don't look at it. And I know that probably in a year and 2 and 5 years, I'll look back and think about my current things and like, oh no, that was so embarrassing. Why did I do that? But you can't get better unless you do it. And I think you have to put yourself out there if you're wanting to share and meet new people and do fun things. It's just, I'm in a real transition just in my own life with my kids growing up and not needing me so much. And so it's kind of like I'm doing all these new things, and I'm having fun and totally embarrassing myself, and it's just fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Yarny community is the place to put yourself out there, because they're so accepting and loving and like non-judgmental.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
They're just the best.
They are.
So when you make like one of your little amigurumi characters, you often write like a little story to go along with it. Yeah. So when did you start doing that?
I started that pretty early on, and I'll show you who I started it with. This was the second one that I had made.
Oh, he's cute.
You know, when you just look at them and they just start to have their own personality, and if you come up with a name for one of them, all of a sudden they just have a background, they have a personality, they have a story behind them. And his name is Mr. Victor Whitby. And he is so flawed. He's very flawed, but I loved him, and I just saw a little personality in there, and it was just sort of like, oh, I'll just write this down. And I also saw other people doing that on Instagram, and I thought it was so cute. And I thought, okay, I'll do that too.
That's really, really creative. That's a type of creativity that I do not have. Like,
well, you can design, which that is something I do not have at all. So Yeah, your designing ability is incredible.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I guess we all have our, our talents and our weaknesses. Because, like, even my first, like, 5 maybe patterns that I put out, their names were, like, large amigurumi elephant and amigurumi alpaca and whale. Because I was like, I don't know. I can't do names. And so I finally started, because I was just like looking at like all of the people who were commenting on YouTube, that I'd been talking with for a long time and like, kind of chatting with. And I was like, why don't I just use their names? Like,
absolutely.
Like, that'll work. And so that's, I finally started. Actually, no, I started because of your Penelope pig.
Oh,
that was on your wall. That was my very first one that I named. And then after that, people were like, what's the name for the next one? And I'm like, geez, I don't know.
It's like naming a child.
So that's when I started, saying, all right, I'll just use,
Yeah, that's fun.
people who are following, supporting, who care about this. Use their names.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun.
So that's been pretty fun for me.
Yeah.
So what sorts of things do you like watch or listen to while you crochet?
A variety of things. So I do love podcasts. I love podcasts. I listen to a lot of blogging ones. Like the Jenna Kutcher, who's teaching you about social media and all these things. I like that kind of, kind of like the little business side of, doing the yarn thing. And I love to watch YouTube videos. I love knitting and crochet ones, but I also love, and I don't even know why I love these, I love like homesteading YouTube channels.
Oh, yeah.
I live in total suburbia on a 1/4 acre lot. We have 1 dog, but I love watching like where people teach you how to make a chicken tractor and like how you can raise chickens and goats, and I love all that stuff. And then on the flip side, I also am a reality TV junkie. I love some reality TV. So I will do that too. So.
What is so addicting about that? I don't know, but
I think I love to see drama in somebody else's life. I cannot handle it in my own, but from a distance, silly drama is funny to me. So
yeah. I'm curious about those homesteading ones. You might have to like give me I don't know, if there are some that you like to follow.
Well, there's one that it's the Lisa from Farmhouse on Boone. She actually did the blog course, but what she really does is she's a DIY homesteading. They're fixing up their Victorian farmhouse. She has
that's cool.
Almost 6 children now. It's absolutely fascinating. I love watching their journey, and it's just really, I don't know, it's probably that simpler time that I love. Kind of, living that through other people. It's really neat. Yeah.
My parents are very self-sufficient. And so I always kind of gravitate toward things like that. And like anytime I get the idea of like, oh, we could go off the grid, I'm like, whoa. That would be
I would
so
totally
cool.
do that. My husband, no, that is not his thing, but I would totally do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. This is our first time like living in a city, really, And so my husband is starting to get accustomed to the luxuries of city life, just having things so
garbage
close.
Collection and things like that,
Oh, yeah. I mean, he grew up in a smaller town in Idaho than I did.
Oh,
and like there wasn't garbage collection.
Right.
Just like, there isn't.
Right.
But I don't know, maybe I can still convince him.
Right.
If I can do all the research, and I'm going to start, following this lady.
Oh, yes. I think you would like her.
It sounds like I would.
Yeah.
I'm excited to look into this later.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, is there anything you've been obsessed with lately?
Oh, I always have my little obsessions. Well, it really is knitting. I'll show you my, the latest little one that I just made. I call her Meg because she reminds me of my oldest daughter, but I love knitting at this point. That's kind of my thing. I love knitting the little clothes, and
Yeah, that
it's
shirt
really,
is darling.
yeah, it's really different from, in some ways it's very similar to crocheting, amigurumi, but in some ways it's different. And I'm finding that it was really nice that I had the background in crocheting them to be able to now
Oh, yeah.
knit them. I think it really does help construction wise, just to be able to wrap your mind around how do you construct a toy. Although these are different, you actually knit them flat and then you seam them together.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and there are some that are knitted that you use double point needles to knit in the round.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not a super big fan of that. But so right now, this is kind of my obsession, and it's just I love something where I'm having to learn. Like I need to learn something new. I have to challenge myself, and that's why I'm really enjoying these right now.
That is so cool. And her glasses, are they just like little wire?
Yeah, they're actually, it was
cute.
A little Christmas present. I mean, Christmas ornament that I had laying around the house, and it had these little glasses, and of course I snagged them and thought, I wonder if that will fit on this little rabbit, and it did, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, like, that's perfect.
Now I'm on the hunt for something like this. I'm looking everywhere on the internet to find little glasses that
tiny
will
glasses.
be the same size. Yes.
That's adorable. So do you have a favorite kind of yarn to work with?
Yeah, I really do. And I have a couple of reasons for it. Right now, for the bodies, I really love Barocco Vintage.
Okay.
This is a worsted weight. So I really love worsted and I did that. I use this even if I'm crocheting amigurumi. Number one, it's really soft. This one comes in a lot of heathered kind of colors. This is like a rusty kind of, it's a beautiful color, but it has like some yellow highlights and some red. It's just really pretty. But one thing I like about it is that it's a wool, acrylic, and nylon blend. So there's a little bit of a stretch to it, which I have found that I've developed some tendonitis in my elbows and my wrists from crocheting so much and knitting so much. And I have found that fibers that don't have some stretch to them can really aggravate that. So I've really found that if it's got that little bit of nylon in it, I think this really has very little nylon, but it's enough that my joints, I can really feel it in my joints. I had to stop using cotton. I was really loving cotton, but it's just too hard on those old elbows and wrists at this point. So I really, really like that.
Wow, that's I'd never thought about like the stretch that is in the yarn, but that makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until I was listening actually to Bee Hook podcast, and she was talking all about different yarns and things, and they mentioned about the cotton, and the lady, her guest, said something like, oh yeah, cotton, can really cause some issues in people's wrists, because it doesn't have any stretch. And it was like, oh, that's what's going on. That's what it is,
Yeah.
Of course, I had a ton of cotton yarn. It's like, and what am I going to do with
all this? Wait a minute.
Yeah, right. But it was really nice to kind of identify what was one of the triggers and help that to get better. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you do any like stretches or anything to like help mitigate that?
I do. Yeah, I do some stretching, but I have really found that icing. Especially if I've had a long session and I've really sat down and we're watching a movie or something and I've sat down for 2 or 3 hours straight, it's probably a good idea for me to just pop a little ice pack on my elbow or on my wrist. And that really, really helps. Yeah.
That is good to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really
I find it interesting that a lot of people, once I start talking to them, they also have experienced wrist pain or shoulder pain or elbow pain. It's pretty common in those of us who like to do it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, for some reason, I think in my mind, because I mean, it's just crocheting,
Right.
so it just feels like really like this shouldn't be a problem.
Exactly.
I shouldn't need to stretch. I shouldn't need to ice.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I don't know. It's good almost to just like bring awareness to like this, a little bit of stretching, a little bit of ice.
Right.
Like those are good things for
Yes. It really is a repetitive motion type of injury. I ended up having to go to physical therapy for it because
Oh,
mine got
really?
pretty bad.
Yeah.
And it really is repetitive motion. People can end up with carpal tunnel syndrome. There's a lot of things that you want to avoid. So stretching, taking breaks, icing, ibuprofen, all those things are good to, think about. Just so that you can keep, I'm looking at this. I want to be able to knit and crochet for decades.
Oh,
I want
yeah.
to be able to continue to do this. So,
yeah, this is my love. I need to always do
yes.
it.
I need to, I would just, yeah. I want to do this forever. So, just knowing those little things has improved it tremendously.
Well, that is really good to know. Thank you for that tip.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
What would you say is your main motivation for making content and, doing your crocheting and your knitting?
Yeah. I think, first of all, I love helping other people discover crocheting and knitting toys. Because I know how much joy it's brought to me. Mm-hmm. And I know that for me, it's been something that's helped me deal with stress. It's just brought me so much happiness. I've met so many amazing people. So I just think so many of us are kind of isolated and maybe we don't know our neighbors as much anymore and things like that. Whereas when you're in the fiber community, we come together. People, even if you only know somebody, like I know you from Instagram and YouTube, it's like you get to meet people and you're like, I feel like I know this person. We're friends, and then I had a really cool experience a few months ago where a friend of mine just reached out to me randomly. She used to be a neighbor but had moved away and I hadn't talked to her in a while. And she just reached out and said, I just want to thank you for you putting your little animals on there in your stories. And I was like, oh, sure. I like doing it. And she said, well, my dad was in the hospital. He had cancer. And every day I would show him your photos and read the little story. And he just loved them. He just thought, oh, how fun this was. And eventually the cancer went into his brain and he was no longer able to see. And she said that she would still just sit down and she would read the daily story to him if I would put that on there. And she said it was just a bright spot in their day that was a really difficult time for them. And he had passed away not long after that. But she said, I just want to thank you for doing that. And that literally blew me away to think. I had no idea that anybody, I don't know if anybody reads. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes with everybody. And to know that it was brightening somebody's day, that meant the world to me. And I thought, some days when I'm like, I'm not going to post anything, I think, no, I don't know what's going on in somebody else's life that maybe they just need to see a cute bunny with some glasses and a cute little purple dress and it just makes them smile. And I really believe in my heart that the world needs more of that. We need more of the good things and the happy things and things that make other people smile. And that, to me, that's what really motivates me.
Wow. I love that. That's a really incredible story.
It touched my heart.
Yeah, you don't know. You have no idea when you put content out how it's going to be received, who's even reading it or anything.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That has been one thing that I have found really just incredible. Like when you for me it's the designing patterns, but because it's just here and it's mostly in my head and then it's in my hands and then it's on the internet, it feels like kind of whatever. Sometimes I love it and I hope other people do as well, but but then you do hear stories like I remember Kim at the Blue Cherub just saying that her son took his chubby bunny to school one day. You're just the idea that there's this adorable little English boy taking his rabbit that's based on one of my patterns to school. Just incredible the reach that the internet gives you. It's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And to think you brought a smile to some little boy and then he's showing it to his little friends and they're all like, oh, how cute,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the coolest.
Yeah, it really is.
So I think you kind of answered this next question, but I'll ask it anyway. How do you feel the world would change if more people crocheted?
Oh, I think the world could change. I just want everybody to learn how to crochet and knit. I just think.
It's like hold yarn in your hands.
Yes.
Make things with it.
Yes. You know, and I even really encourage my husband not to crochet and knit because he's not interested in that. But I've really said, listen, it'd be good for you to have some kind of a hobby outside of your job that you get your hands busy. And I don't remember where I heard the quote from, but it was something like, when you keep your hands busy, your mind can rest. And I know that there are studies out there. Actually, there was an article in Martha Stewart Living not that long ago that was actually about the research that researchers have done about the effects of knitting. And I'm sure it could apply to crocheting and embroidery or woodworking or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, or weaving or...
anything that it delays dementia. It is a relaxation. Actually, people's heart rates go down when they're knitting. And I just think about how much just lower some stress, because I think so many people live in such a highly stressed out all the time.
Yes.
And I think about that we are connected to things that our ancestors did, because I love to think about these things. I did my DNA not that long ago and found that I'm pretty Irish. I'm a pretty Irish gal. And then once I started learning about the Irish women who would crochet lace during the potato famine, that actually helped their whole families to not starve to death. And I just kind of think back to those things, that this is sort of ingrained in us, that we're to use our hands, we're to do these types of things, get off the internet, get out of the reality TV stuff, you know, get away from our jobs and all of these things and make something beautiful with your hands. I just think that connects something with our brains and you know, our history, that I just think benefits everybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think along those lines, I've had this thought before, is that like, as we make beautiful things, we become a maker of beautiful things.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't be an author without having written a book. So as you make the book makes you an author.
Yes.
And as you know, so like as you're making something, you become.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. The world would be better.
It would be.
So do you have any other questions you would like me to ask?
What was I thinking? I had one and now I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. You know what? I would like to ask you, if you wouldn't mind me asking you a question. I love learning about people's, like, their creative process. Like, how do you come up with a design, and like, what does your process look like? I just, to me, that is so fascinating, because that is a skill I don't have. I can get a pattern and I can make it, and I love doing that. But for me, the designing thing is that is some hard stuff. That my brain doesn't work like that. So I'm fascinating to know, like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So for me, most of the time I'll get inspired by something. Like you held up that skein of yarn with that's kind of like that rust color, and I've been looking at like pictures of Highland cows all this morning, and so I'm just like, they're so cute. They're adorable. So that wants to happen desperately.
Like the ones with the
fringe exactly, like the big shaggy. They're so cute. I just have to finish some of my other works in progress. That's my problem lately, is I get too excited about my other projects. But anyhow, usually I'll get inspired by something, and then I will like kind of just like sketch out the shapes, you know, that I'm going to need, you know, thinking about construction. You know, is it going to stand up? Is it going to sit? Is it going to be on all fours? Is it going to, you know, have, you know, the moving kind of arms and legs? You know, how am I going to construct it? And then I just start crocheting, and I crochet a row and I write down what I did, and I crochet another row and I write down what I did. So I've got like I've got this right here because I've been working on. See if you can see that.
Oh wow!
So like this is
Wow.
Yeah, it's just a notebook
Yeah.
and it's every single row, and I go through and I cross out things that didn't work. There's lots of crossing out because
Oh my
there's a
gosh.
lot that doesn't
Oh,
work. And then like I circle the ones that do work so I can like kind of keep it separate. I think I've got some sketching in here. So like, if you can see, I don't know if you can see that very well, but like this was the, trying to make the unicorn hobby horse. I was, like coming up with the different ideas and just trying to write it down. So that's how it goes for me. Then I usually end up making one that's the rough draft, and then I'll sit on it for a while, because there's almost always something that I'm not happy with, but it takes me a while to figure it out.
Right.
It's like, have you ever taken like a drawing class and you do a drawing and you, especially if it's like of someone's face, and you're like, okay, this doesn't look like them, but I don't know what I need to change. And you like set it aside for a week, then you come back and you're like, oh, I see it now. You're like, So that's how that kind of works for me, is sometimes I just need to, put it on the back burner, work on something else, and then I can come back and evaluate and be like, okay, this is disproportionate this way. I need to shrink this, or this needs to be bigger, and then I kind of micro adjust and I make a second one.
Okay. Oh my gosh, that's so much work.
It is a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. I think that's something that people don't really realize. It's one thing to get a pattern and you just make it and you happily make it, and it's going to turn out exactly the way you want to because the pattern was written well. But to design it, and that just blows me away. I'm very impressed by that. Just that ability to be able to, you have to have a lot of patience. I would say that takes a lot of patience to say, okay, it's not exactly right, but I'm going to set it aside and I will come back to it at a later date, that's amazing.
Well, thank you. I would say I'm certainly not perfect. There have been plenty that I've set aside and I still haven't gotten back to. Right. The great horned owl, I just finished it. I made the very first version in 2017, and I shoved it on the way back burner and was like, I don't know, someday I'll get to you. And honestly, it would still probably be there if I wasn't getting comments from people on YouTube who were like seeing it, in my stuff, saying, hey, where's that pattern?
Where's that?
Fine.
Wow.
But yeah, it is a process. There's a lot that goes into it, but I love it.
When did you start designing?
The end of 2017.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought maybe you'd been doing it a lot longer than that.
No.
Wow.
No,
and you've done all of those designs since then?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Your brain must just be like all the time.
Yes.
Oh
to the point that if I like, when you're like meditating or you're just kind of like sitting in like a calm space, like if I'm in that like calm space and I start thinking about ideas, it gets overwhelming to the point that I have to be like, all right, shut it down.
Wow.
I can't make all of these right now.
Wow.
But I had a master list actually like in the back of this book for a while. And then I moved it to, I might not be able to find it. Then I moved it to an actual like Word document because it was getting so convoluted, but there were like tons, and then I started, you can see like my list. Wow. And then beside that, most of them I've got like small, medium, large.
Oh,
because I want to make, 3 versions of each of them.
Right.
Because I'm nuts. But I love it.
Yeah.
It makes me really happy. It feeds my soul. So
yes.
I can be nuts if it's good for me, right?
Exactly.
Well, I know where people can find you online, but how about you tell us all about where we can find you online so people can follow you, check out your work?
Yeah, you can always go to my website, which is just lepetitsaintcrochet.com. I'm also on Instagram with the same handle and on YouTube as well.
Well, that's perfect. We'll link those below so people can find them. And actually, last question, because I totally forgot to ask this.
Okay.
What does Le Petit Saint mean? I've wondered, like, ever since I started following you.
It's kind of a funny story. Number one, I don't speak French. I have been corrected many times on Instagram. People say, why do you say it like that? That's not how you say it. I'm like, I know. I'm just a Southern lady.
Sorry.
I don't say it right. I know. I've never taken a French class in my entire life. But it really is named for my favorite saint, which is, her name is Saint Therese of Lisieux. And her whole philosophy was doing small things with great love. And she really felt like you could change the world by doing what, basically bloom where you're planted. Wherever you are, do it with a great amount of love, even if it's something tremendously small. And I just kind of look at my little journey with crochet and knitting and toys as, it's such a small thing, but if I can do it with great love, I can bring joy and happiness to other people and myself and my family. So yeah, that's really where it came from.
That is beautiful. And that's such a, I mean, I don't know, an excellent motto.
Yeah.
To have just
kind of my
surrounding,
making small things with great love. So yeah.
Well, I can't imagine a better way to end an interview. That was
yay.
That was very beautiful. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Valerie. I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun.
I've enjoyed it too. Thank you. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Thank you.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I had a blast getting to know Elise better. The interviews are always fun, and it's just so exciting to get to like know on a deeper level the creators that you follow, and you get snippets of their personality through the work that they do, but it's just so fun, and it's a blessing to get to know them better in an interview. So I hope you guys had fun. I certainly did, and I will talk to you guys soon.